Bryson DeChambeau has been the poster child of LIV Golf ever since he joined in June of 2022, winning majors and making his mark in the golf game. However, with the departure of Koepka and the development of a clear path back to the PGA Tour, well, Bryson's bargaining power has jumped to an unbelievable level, with some estimating he could ask for up to $500 million to continue with LIV Golf. And today, we're going to talk about what that means for Bryson and LIV, because the numbers here are wild, but the reality of what I think might actually happen is probably a little bit different than what you might think. Alright, so Bryson DeChambeau has a very interesting choice here on his hands. He could stay with LIV, use his absurd amount of leverage to win the largest deal in golf history potentially, or move back to the PGA Tour to compete with the best competition in the world and probably get better even because of it. And Bryson isn't really giving us a clue about what he's gonna do.
Bryson, I'm just curious if you want to share your thoughts on some of the recent developments.
Look, I'm contracted through 2026, so excited about this year.
All right.
Okay, obviously I'm joking. Him and all the other guys in that video genuinely look like somebody being held against their will. He kept that answer to the question very political, not committing to either staying with LIV or going over to the PGA Tour, trying to keep all doors open to both options, showing me that he's not really majorly committed to either one right now. That being said, Bryson has a lot of good options right now that I'm going to get into later on, but for LIV Golf, it's kind of weird because of where the tour sits right now altogether. LIV Golf's 2026 season is going to be a very important one because it's going to be the last one with Bryson DeChambeau locked into a contract amongst a field of fleeting foes, with only really Jon Rahm having both the quality now and star power to really drive viewers to the events. And so the value of these big guys and the importance of keeping them on tour is only growing for them, especially with LIV Golf struggling to poach a lot of the other top golf competition from the PGA Tour. However, I actually don't think it's that major of a deal for them. See, if you've seen anything about a LIV Golf event, the golf is only a small piece of the actual entertainment, with concerts and food halls and overall a much more kind of music festival-like approach to a golf event, all the while keeping the ticket prices less than half the price for many of most of the PGA Tour events during the season. This has led to a pretty significant fan base, at least an enjoyment level of the events for the fans that are actually able to attend. Whether that can really compare to the PGA Tour on the long run, or if it's more of a pretty loud minority, we don't really know yet. But I do know that the fans, they really enjoy going to these events despite it not being the most competitive tour, not really having the top talent. It doesn't really seem to matter, at least for the people there. And I think the addition of the team formats and the shorter tournaments altogether kind of maybe add to the interest in the sport, especially for the guys there, but I don't know, I'm still not that totally invested. Still feels a little bit gimmicky to me, and though that's definitely subjective, it'll be to the eye of the beholder what they enjoy. Being weird, being a little bit different than the PGA Tour has at the very least led to a little bit of a following. And honestly, I'm impressed. I really never thought that much of LIV. Thought it was kind of just gonna be a money grab of a game that I'd never really watch or pay attention to. And though that's basically true, I don't really pay attention to it very much and definitely don't watch it, I can't ignore it because I can see with my own eyes the impact it has on the golf audience, even if it is not that overall influential relative to the PGA Tour. I see the comments, I see the posts online. It's not the most compelling thing to me or to a lot of golfers online, as I've seen plenty of critiques on, but that doesn't necessarily matter for a lot of other people. However, I do think having those big names is important for having any semblance of growth or consistency in the growth of LIV Golf over the next few years, with Bryson being probably the most important of all of those guys. DeChambeau is like his own little marketing machine, creating a wild amount of impressions from his content online. And no matter what you think about his politics or his absolutely insane dance, like I can't watch this guy. I've seen some posts from him that I'm just like, I'm losing my mind cringing at, but it works, right? It gets him in front of a lot of people in a way probably no other golfers can do right now at all, not even come close to that. It works, and because he's on LIV, well, it brings attention to this new golf tour thing that actually actually represents Bryson's persona very well. LIV Golf and Bryson's kind of very outwardly outgoing, extreme kind of caricature version of himself online works well together in the way that it's just different, it's polarizing, and it's important for the growth of LIV Golf to have somebody like this in their arsenal, to be able to grow the tour alongside Bryson because of Bryson. And it's why they really can't afford to lose him if they want that sustainability and that level that they've been trying to push to, which gives Bryson a ridiculous amount of leeway in negotiations. However, the story for Bryson of what he might want is a little bit less clear. Over the past few years, this character of DeChambeau has grown significantly, going from this weird science guy on tour to the long drive US Open winner to YouTuber to now one of the biggest golf influencers with the biggest brand deals, and is still going out there and competing in those majors with the very best golfers in the world. This guy has developed his brand like absolutely crazy in a way that I think he's probably the most valuable golfer in the world, genuinely, solely because of the amount of impressions he can drive for companies wanting to sponsor him and just be a part of what he can create. Because of that, because of companies probably shilling out a ton of money to be a part of his YouTube videos, to sponsor him, to be on his shirts, to do things like that, plus the money he's already gotten for LIV, well, he's probably got a ridiculous net worth right now, meaning he might not necessarily need the rest of this money from LIV. I know finance guys and CEOs love to push their numbers up, make more and make more and make more. I get it, but that's for guys that get into those businesses for the money. And professional athletes, at least a good amount of them, aren't always like that. Now, clearly, money is a big part of it, explaining why guys like Bryson and Jon Rahm, who were very competitive with the best in the world when they made the move to LIV, actually made the move altogether. They needed that money, and the money gave them the security for the rest of their lives and meant they wouldn't have to worry about keeping their tour card or maintaining their status or anything like that forever. They can just go out there, play in the majors, which is basically all anyone cares about anyway, and then have this bag, have this comfort in life. Yeah, they can say they want to contribute to this new format or whatever, grow the game, be competitive, push the PGA Tour to be better, whatever. But I think a lot of it was just an excuse to allow them to justify the move to LIV altogether. Let's be honest, they weren't going to make the move if LIV Golf was offering less money and just this new format. That's not the reason. It's just trying to explain away why they made the choice, when in reality, it was just money, like some of them did say. However, these guys aren't necessarily in the whole game entirely just for the money. Like, yeah, these guys probably love it, and some definitely are thirsty for cash. Looking at you, Phil. But that doesn't mean they have that same drive to increase their paycheck wildly every year for the hell of it. They got into the game in the first place because they had this wild obsession and drive to be the best from a very young age, to compete and compete and compete, that never died out, that they never got burnt out from, and that they kept trying to get better, not the drive for money. It was also that obsession that made them competitive and allowed them to be able to get to those big markers and finally make it and qualify on the PGA Tour and then go on past that. And taking that money and going over to LIV because of the lack of overall quality on LIV Golf altogether and the different format that from what they have been training for their entire lives, well, it doesn't exercise that same desire for competition, in my opinion, and almost certainly it's true, than the PGA Tour does, than what they hoped for. In case you guys were wondering, I haven't been on LIV or the PGA Tour, and so I'm kind of just talking out of my butt right now, but that's what I do for a living. Thank you for supporting me. But I do watch a lot of golf, and I see the competitive nature of these guys and things like the Ryder Cup and the majors that they are allowed to play in, and they clearly still have that fire in them despite going over to LIV altogether. And the more time they spend at LIV away from all of this competition, I can imagine that it makes the picture of the PGA Tour prettier and prettier with every passing day. And now they have that bag already to set them up for life, make all the donations they ever wanted to, and do whatever they need to forever. And so the question for Bryson DeChambeau now becomes, does he want the bag more than the competition? Now, I gotta be honest, I have no idea. I could read into that interview that Bryson did, the few weeks ago, where he kind of gave the most vague and non-committal answer that I've seen in a very long time, but I've also seen this guy act in Happy Gilmore. on his YouTube channel in advertisements. And I'm not calling him Leonardo DiCaprio, but I'm saying he's got a PR team that tell him what to say, I'm certain, in certain circumstances, and can tell him, hey, it's probably financially more intelligent to be non-committal, leave some doubt in the eyes and the minds of the guys at LIV Golf to think they need to pay you a big bag, while also not saying anything that will upset the PGA Tour anymore. They have a new commissioner now and a new head of the tour who seems to be a little bit more lenient with the whole thing and wants those LIV golfers back, so they don't want him to break any potential bonds that might be there, while also allowing him to grab and suck as much money out of LIV Golf potentially from the whole thing. So I can't read into that whole conversation too much because I can't really trust it, right? There's not a lot of truth there. I think it's a very political thing, as I said earlier, where he's trying to leave the door open to both sides, therefore maximizing how much money he can potentially make. However, that's only one side of this coin, because where does this leave LIV? Alright, so to be very clear, LIV is not a normal tour or a normal business for that matter. They have a trillionaire founder and don't have to be profitable or even have a normal business model that makes any sort of sense. And so they could definitely just go and pay Bryson whatever he wants. Give him that $500 million and let him continue Brysoning up social media in a way that will undoubtedly bring more viewers to the tour. That being said, I don't think they will. They recently signed Michael Asasso, who is the reigning NCAA individual champion and has like the most shallow swing I've ever seen. Homie is gonna break his back. No surprise, he took the LIV Golf money. I would. He's a college kid who's likely offered 7, potentially 8 figures to join Phil Mickelson's team, be a part of the High Flyers, and play golf and make more money than potentially he could have ever made on the PGA Tour, realistically, because there was a lot of risk there. There's a good chance you don't get enough FedEx Cup points or points in general to stay on the PGA Tour after using your exemptions up, and therefore falling into the Korn Ferry Tour, which is a very, very hard life. With this move, and another earlier this season with Jose Luis Ballester, LIV now controls 2 of the top 4 finishers in the NCAA individual championships altogether, meaning they are starting to snipe this younger talent that they can definitely get at a much more affordable price and who have lethal potential to be a competitor on the PGA Tour in the future, be a big name even 5, 6, 7 years from now. But now they're playing for LIV and they're being sniped up, and the PGA Tour will have a weaker talent pool to pick from. This tells me that LIV knows that they have some names that can really drive the audience, like Phil Mickelson, like Bryson DeChambeau, like Cameron Smith, even these guys, John Rahm, that can bring audiences there, bring attention to the LIV Golf thing and legitimize it now. And they're signing these youngsters that can make the fields deeper and give the tour a little bit more of a reputation going forward than kind of just a retirement tour for guys like Dustin to just lay up his boots and not really ever care anymore. And maybe this indicates a sort of shift by LIV Golf. Instead of being a direct contributor or competitor against the PGA Tour, someone with also the best competition, being more of a DP World Tour, Korn Ferry Tour, Asian Tour kind of thing, where they get kind of the B-grade talent. It's more of a developmental tour or a retirement tour, like I said earlier, where guys can go at an older age and go play with a bunch of younger guys that maybe didn't have the clout or wanted the money and develop their time there before potentially moving to the PGA Tour later if their game gets good enough. We've seen also a shift from them, a willingness to want to get closer and closer in the formats, in the guidelines, to get those official World Golf ranking points and be a part of the game as a whole in a better way than LIV Golf has over the past few years. And so for that version of LIV Golf, spending $500 million on Bryson DeChambeau, yes, the most famous man in golf, almost certainly at least on tour right now, or spending it on 25 guys that are some of the most talented players in the up-and-coming golf world. But let me know what you think. What move should Bryson do? What do you think will actually happen? And if you enjoyed this video, go jump on over to this one about the return of Brooks Koepka to the PGA Tour. And I'll see you there. Peace.